Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be doing an installation and review of this Zenitco Klesh-1S light, which I'm going to be putting actually onto my P320, not onto the usual AK that I've been upgrading for this entire series. So let's get started. When you get this, it comes in a nice leather pouch, and it has the booklet with it. It came in a bag as well, but I've already got things kind of unpacked and ready for the video. So as usual with the start, I want to read off a few of the dimensions, not all of them, because of course these are just kind of boring statistics, but this does weigh, the important one I wanted to mention is that this weighs a 101 plus or minus 3 grams. As usual, I'm sure Zenitco's weights are correct, so I'm not going to be weighing it myself. And so of course weighs a little bit, but not too bad. It doesn't feel too weighty. Once I put this on here, I'll test if it makes it feel any more barrel heavy or anything like that. But let's get started. So this goes on just with this sort of, you can use either a flathead screwdriver, in the case, that's what I'm using in my case, or you could use like, I guess a coin or, you know, anything like that would fit. And then this tab here just kind of goes like that. Similar to a, I'm not too familiar with a whole bunch of pistol lights, but this is similar to a Streamlight TLR-3, which I have here, and I'll be comparing, I'll be using for comparison with this later. But back to focusing on this. So I've already got this loosened up a little bit, so I'm just going to put this right onto here. And I do want this a bit further out, that way, you know, it's more or less in line with the muzzle. That way, this has a very, I was messing around with this a little bit already off camera, this has a very wide spill, I believe is the correct term, which I will show later. So I do want this out here so it doesn't get obstructed at all on the top by the gun itself. So just like so, then I'll just get this tightened down. Alright, that seems on there nice and sturdy. One thing I do already want to mention is that when I bought this, I was actually expecting it to be bigger, but I'm very happy that it's actually not as big as I was expecting. I don't know why I was, because I even measured it before buying it, and it's fine. It sits very nicely on this P320. Of course, they do have a Klesh-1 version, so that is another thing I want to mention, is this is the Klesh-1S. They make a Klesh-1, which is different because it's made for rifles and it has a reflector in it, whereas this one for pistols does not. As you can see, that's all there is, and also this is actually totally safe because I safety checked it before the video, and you're not actually here either. So, but anyway, yeah, no reflector. When I first got this, I was a bit alarmed because this just looks totally weird, but it is working as intended, as you can see there. Wait for my camera to get back into focus. There we go. I won't go over every single little feature this has. Zenitco themselves have already made a very good video about this, but this does have a bunch of different brightness modes. We have a just on mode, we have a momentary, if I hold, or so a push and hold I could say, on the back, these back buttons. The side button here on the right side, as though it actually turns it on. If I double tap this, I got a strobe, which I can also cancel by pressing that, and then it just goes back to regular on. So I'm very impressed so far with the controls. I haven't had any issues with it so far, but of course I haven't actually tested it much. But you know, just with testing it off the gun, I've been quite impressed so far. But this, yeah, this is literally just first impressions, but this doesn't feel bad. I don't feel like this is super barrel heavy or anything like that. The balance on this still feels nice and good. And at least for me, now granted I have larger hands, and this is a full-sized P320, so I can reach all the controls on this light very easily without shifting my grip whatsoever. But for you, depends on your exact hand size and all that. But of course, if you have issues with that, you could just mount it further back. That is a nice and easy install, and that does it for my first impressions. I'm going to mess around with this and practice with it quite a bit. And when I get back to you, I'm going to be, I think the next thing I'll do is I want to test this, and I'm going to, like I said earlier, I'm going to be comparing it to this TLR-3 outside. Now I can't do a full, as much as I would like to, I can't do as in-depth of a comparison as I would like, but I am going to test everything else possible with like the hotspot, the color temperature, and the They don't give the exact candela, but I'll see if I can figure that out too on the Klesh later. And yeah, just a bunch of comparisons with the TLR-3. I don't own very many pistol lights, so in fact, this is now the only one I own, and I'm just borrowing this one from someone else. But my logic is that you will hopefully be able to find more reviews on the TLR-3 and see comparisons between them and other lights. And the United analog review. Now I'll have all of it. Earlier, shooting behind me, shining the light, very center mass on that, and then where the light. One more thing I want to mention though about the I go well, typically over some of their other have an eye or another towards but I decided not to get all on the laser. And I decided not to go first with our light. I decided not to get that because I don't have night vision goggles, so I wouldn't be able to make use of an infrared light. And furthermore, I didn't get the one with a laser because I don't really use lasers that much. I used to have one, and I just didn't find a whole great amount of use out of it, so I removed it from my rifle. I don't know if you like lasers. I've heard that the Zenitco lasers are very good and they're extremely bright. However, on the other hand, I've also heard that a lot of even the brightest gun lasers aren't very visible in daylight, so that is something to consider too. Granted, you know, you'd be using it generally at closer ranges and when it's somewhat darker, but it's just something to keep in mind. So that's a reason I didn't get the version with a laser on it. And one more thing I did want to mention is this Klesh-1S, or also the Klesh-1, which is their rifle version. This uses two CR123 batteries, which is pretty good, at least for me. I have a ton of CR123s. It seems like quite a few optics and a lot of, I guess, gun accessories do tend to use that battery, so that's pretty good. But anyway, that's all I kind of wanted to start with. So I'm going to start actually, I'll start with the TLR-3 here, and then we'll compare it to the Klesh-1S. So as I said, I'll just be aiming directly at the center mass. So let's get started. I'm just going to set this down. Oh, and one more thing, you aren't going to see me when I record this. 15 meters is actually right where the camera is right now, so I'll just be right there next to the camera. So let's get started. All right, starting out with the TLR-3. So getting started with the spill, I don't know how many degrees it would be. It's decent. The color temperature, not that that really matters too much, but it's pretty pretty yellowish. And we do have a noticeable hotspot here. I don't know how well you'll be able to see that in the camera, but it's very centered on the target itself, whereas the rest of the light it just kind of, well, you can't see me at all. It just looked like a spooky, at any rate. Yeah, it does definitely have a pretty strong hotspot on this. So next, I will get the Klesh-1S. So this is the Klesh-1S on the maximum brightness setting, and the spill on this is tremendous. In fact, I purposely set up the camera where I thought it would kind of cover both of them pretty well, but this is actually so large of a spill that it's totally the entire area that I'm recording is being lit up, I guess you could say. So tremendous amount of spill. That is an advertised feature of this because they don't have the reflector on this light, so it would of course have a bigger thing like that. There is no hotspot on this. Everywhere is just pretty similar in how bright it is. Unlike on the TLR-3, again, it makes sense because they don't have a reflector, that it wouldn't kind of focus the light on any specific point. And the color temperature, again, not that it really matters, but this is definitely a lot more of just a regular, like, pure white, which I guess could actually matter. But yeah, this is definitely a very pure, just white, and it doesn't have any yellowish tint to it. So going back and doing a side-by-side comparison, I think the results here are pretty interesting. Although the Zenitco Klesh-1S is objectively far brighter, it doesn't actually look as bright in the footage, and that is because of the lack of a reflector and because of how big the spill is. Just going off of the raw specs of the Streamlight TLR-3, it only has a candela of 3,300, whereas you saw the one I calculated earlier was 12,500, and even if that calculation's wrong, going off the lumens then, the TLR-3 is 170, whereas the Zenitco Klesh-1S has 500 max output. So very, very different. However, the focus of the TLR-3 really made it seem a lot brighter, and honestly I think that that's better, to have it less of a wide angle but more focused, just a little bit, not too focused either, of course. But it makes me wonder, the Klesh-1 that Zenitco offers is their rifle version, as I kind of mentioned earlier, but I wonder if that would actually work better even on a pistol like this, because the spread here is just so much. I could see it working well in a lot of situations, of course, but I do think for most situations where you would be using a light, you'd probably want it at least a bit more focused. Well, the other thing to think about is also that the camera will always make things look darker. Like, I could very easily visually identify the target out there and I could tell what it was, but I do think it would have been better if it was a little bit more focused. So I don't have a Klesh 1, I only bought this 1S, so I don't have one to compare it to, but I really do wonder if it would be better. And if any of you do own a Klesh 1, I would love to hear if you know the differences. If any of you are in a position to compare it, I would love to hear it. Okay, so I am back. This is actually another night. This is not the same night. I noticed when I was editing that last segment there was a few more things I wanted to mention. The first of which is what I was kind of just talking about with the insane amount of spill on this. In Zenitco's video that they talked about the Klesh 1 and the Klesh 1S, they did mention that the reflector being removed creates a sort of wall of light, so a photonic barrier sort of effect on the user when you're using this. So that's another thing I'm going to be testing here tonight. I'll go out to 15 meters, so the same distance as the previous segment, and I will just shine this at the camera, and we'll just see how it performs. And again, I'll be comparing it to the TLR-3 in the exact same setup, exact same gun and all that. So we'll see how the photonic barrier, hopefully I'm using the correct term there, compares between the two. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that this Zenitco has a strobe mode, which I don't think I've talked about whatsoever yet. It's not something I will personally probably ever use. It might be nice to have. I don't have a huge amount of experience with lights myself and with low light and all of that, but from what I have heard from other people who've done a lot of low light training and practice with the lights, is that sometimes it's easy to just bump the strobe when you don't want it, and most times you probably wouldn't want it. You would probably just either want it on, or you would just want to like quickly press it on. But, you know, this does have a strobe. It's pretty easy to turn it on. I'll just show it now. So you can either double tap on the side here, and that'll turn it on, or you can turn it on and have it on like this, and you can push on the back, which would normally just actuate, or which would normally just turn on the push and hold toggle. So, anywho, I will go out there, and then one more thing I am going to be testing tonight is I will check, just may as well while I'm out here, I'm going to test it at different ranges, because it seemed like I was kind of reaching the upper limit of this Klesh 1S at 15 meters. So tonight I'm going to be also testing it at 25, and then while I'm at it, even though this is closer, I'll test it at about 7-ish as well, because I may as well. But yeah, let's get started. First, I'll just get out there to the same distance as the previous segment, and I'll just shine this at the camera. So let's get to that now. So right here, this looks very dim, and the reason for that is actually that I found this out after recording this segment, that I actually had the Klesh-1S at a lower brightness setting than was at the maximum. So I just wanted to kind of give a heads up for transparency's sake, that way you don't think I'm trying to make the Klesh-1S look better or worse than I actually am. But I'll cut out the rest of the footage here, and I'll put in the footage of when I actually redid it and gave the Klesh-1S a fair comparison. Alright, now testing the lights at 25 meters. Again, I'm going to start with the Streamlight TLR-3. Okay, now for the same test at 7 meters. Again, we'll start with the TLR-3. Klesh-1S. Alright, so that concludes everything I wanted to cover on this Klesh-1S. Ideally, I would have actually gotten some shooting footage in, but because of where I am and what places I have available to shoot at, it's just not really possible. But hopefully you all found this informative. Regardless, that's pretty interesting, I think, the results. This didn't do as well as I thought it would, and I really do think that the big reason for that is because it just doesn't have that reflector. So I'm still wondering if that Klesh-1 would actually have been a better choice, even for a handgun, like I was kind of mentioning too. But at any rate, I don't think this is necessarily a bad choice for a handgun. For the distance you'd be most likely engaging with a handgun, it does work, but you do kind of start to lose it at about 25. So that is something to think about. But yeah, hopefully, either way, hopefully this helped some of you to make a decision on purchasing, or at the very least, hopefully you found it interesting. And with that, that is absolutely all that I have for this video. So thank you all for watching, take care, and I hope to see you all in the next one.